I think people can see through a dishonest person or a dishonest salesman very quickly. And in real estate, it's absolutely the same. Honesty has always been very, very important to me.
Welcome to the Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast, brought to you by the Rental Property Owner Association, providing benefits and services to real estate investors and rental property owners for over 48 years. With your host, Brian Hamrick from Hamrick Investment Group.
This episode is sponsored by Green Property Management, managing everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area. Find out more at greenpropertymgt.com. And RCB and Associates, helping real estate investors and small business owners navigate the complex world of health insurance and Medicare benefits at rcbassociatesllc.com. Hello and welcome to episode 196. My guest today is an apartment investor, syndicator, and real estate agent who's been in the business for 10 years. Sam Newell is a co-founder of IPI Acquisitions, and he's also the head of commercial real estate at Century 21 Everest Realty Group in Utah. He's sold over $150 million in real estate. Sam's also a great guy who I've gotten to know over the past year, and I've really been looking forward to our conversation, and I know you're going to enjoy it. Sam, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thanks, Brian. I'm excited, and I think you're a great guy as well.
Fill in our listeners as to who you are and what you are all about.
Well, thanks. Personally, I have two kids. I have an almost 2-year-old and a little girl that just turned 6, and my wife, Lauren, is just an awesome, supportive wife. I work a lot of hours, but we also have a lot of fun. So that's my big why is I just have always wanted to have a really happy family, great life for them, and we have a lot of fun. We go on a lot of trips, and I own properties that are being paid off for their college tuition someday, and that's my big motivation at this point is to be able to spend enough time with them while they're young, and that's my big motivation for investing and pushing hard on the real estate side.
There's kind of two tracks that you're on. One is you're a real estate agent, the head of commercial real estate at Century 21 in Utah there.
By the way, the head of commercial, it sounds cool, but literally we don't have a commercial department at Century 21 Everest, so I was tasked with building it up, and it's going really great. But
so you created your own niche?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of heavy hitters here in the area, and we're starting to compete with them. But the reason our owner, George Morris, asked me to do this is because of my investment background personally, because I've done very well on that end. So my wife and I have very different upbringings. She was raised in Park City, Utah. You have to have money to live there. And the reason her family has money is because her granddad developed, bought, sold, and held on to a lot of real estate in the 70s, 80s, and 90s in Southern California, specifically Newport Beach area. And the appreciation's done pretty well there.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, and also storage units all over the U.S. The family still owns quite a bit of real estate that they inherited from him. So on the flip side, I grew up extremely poor in Salt Lake City. Many times the church would bring us food and money and help us pay rent. And I remember one Christmas they brought us Christmas gifts. And so, when I was a kid, my dad was at grad school and it was tough. We were living in a duplex, which, by the way, is still there in North Salt Lake City. And it was tough. So we were very poor. And so when I got married very young, I was 24, I believe my wife was 22, and it's kind of the Mormon Utah thing to do. But we had some very specific goals for investing, and we bought our first flip while we were still going to school. I was at Brigham Young University, and I was just, knew that it was a good idea to own real estate, and I didn't want to continue on my family's path of being poor and paying rent to someone else. And of course, her family kept saying, "Oh yeah, buy rentals." So we had a really great start there. Two big motivating factors. My end was a painful motivation of I don't want to be poor, and her motivation was, I want to be like my grandpa, who was this amazing investor. So that's how we got started. We bought that first flip in 2010, and just had perfect timing. So, and we've done really well ever since.
Well, that was in Salt Lake City?
That was actually in Provo, Utah. So Brigham Young University is in Provo. We bought in Provo, and I think it sold for $330 in 2007. We bought it for $170, moved into it, flipped it, rehabbed it, and sold it for $245, and then jumped into a duplex. And as soon as we bought that flip, my realtor said, "You know what, Sam? If you're doing summer sales, which I was," she said, "if you can go knock doors all summer long and sell these alarm systems or pest control, whatever I was doing," she said, "you ought to get your real estate license." And I was just hoping one day to, be able to buy one investment a year and make $100,000 a year, and that was my end all goal. That would have been amazing for me. And so I got my real estate license and took off from there, and I've done a little bit better than that. So it's been great.
Yeah, so that's an interesting turning point there, because a lot of people, when they do get into real estate investing, think, boy, do I need to get a license? Do I need to become a realtor to do this? You certainly decided to do it. What was some of your decision making there to become a real estate agent and get your real estate license as well?
Well, I spent 5 summers knocking doors in Philadelphia, Minneapolis, all over New Jersey, Kansas City, San Jose, and so I knew how to work hard. I did a 2-year mission for my church in Peru, knocking doors, selling Jesus Christ, basically, teaching about the Bible, and so I knew I could sell. I did very well, made about $40,000-$50,000 a summer to pay for school, and it was my junior year at Brigham Young in construction management. Job offers were coming in for me and all my buddies, all my classmates at $60,000, $65,000, I think was the highest job offer we were getting. And I just thought, how can I work 12 months a year and make $65,000 on a job site that's probably not going to be super fun? And while I can go out and knock doors in the summer and make 40, so if I just knock another 4 months, I can make a heck of a lot more. So I knew I needed to get into sales. And so that was the reason I actually got my license. Is yes, I wanted to find good deals and be able to invest, but I saw it as a way to make more money, meet more great people. If you provide a fantastic service as a realtor, you can be rewarded with a great income. So really it was the income push that I wanted to make a lot more than $50,000-$60,000 out of school, and so I knew I had to do sales.
Okay,
so it just worked out perfectly.
So it sounds like sales is just something that is in your blood. You're good at that. What were you selling door to door over the summer that you were making $40,000?
Either alarm systems. I did alarm systems for a couple summers, and then I did pest control. So alarm systems, they send you to the ghetto. Philadelphia is my first area. And, there's shootings, muggings, everything going on. And the company I was with, they'll give out all the equipment for free. You just have to sign the people up for the monthly monitoring service. So it was a great deal for them because they sure needed it. When my first area, there was a guy, that just robbed a bank with an AK-47 and was shooting up cops and had robbed a couple houses as well. And so the pitch wasn't hard. You didn't really have to try too hard to sell these people. It was a service that they really, really needed. Pest control was the same. They sent me out to Kansas City, and in Kansas City, I don't know if you've ever been there, but in about May, the ants and bugs and wasps go insane, and the people are just looking for a solution because their houses are being invaded by bugs. So again, the pitch wasn't hard. You just had to work hard and talk to a lot of people, and it was great. So I did that for 4 months every summer.
And what is it? I want to focus on the salesmanship a little bit here, because I think that's a key thing to being a syndicator and a real estate investor, because you're selling something at any given point during the process. What is it about you as a salesperson that made you so successful doing these things?
I think people can see through a dishonest person or a dishonest salesman very quickly. And in real estate, it's absolutely the same. When you're on the phone cold calling, trying to find people to sell their house or help them buy a house, the very salesy, gimmicky salesman that everyone hates, I think people get tired of those salesmen. So I would smile and I would just get to the point. And I think I've been told quite a bit, people feel like they can trust me. And honesty has always been very, very important to me. I learned a lot about that as a missionary in Peru, a great mentor and the mission president there. And he just talked a lot about the businesses he was in and how dishonest business partners really caused issues. And so I had that in the back of my mind, and I always have. And I've always been told by clients and people on the door that I was selling that they just felt like they could trust me. They could look into my eyes and could tell that I was telling the truth, not trying to scam them. And I think you combine that with the ability to work 10, 12 hours a day, knocking doors in brutal heat or the rain, you're just going to win. So if you're honest and you're willing to knock 100, 150 doors a day, you'll make money. Or in real estate, if you'll make 40, 50 calls a day to find someone that really needs a good realtor, you're going to make money, and it works out.
If you are thinking of leaving your W-2 job and becoming a full-time real estate investor, one of the greatest costs you must consider is healthcare for you and your family. When I made this transition 5 years ago, I found the whole healthcare insurance process to be confusing and frustrating. That's why I'm glad I met Chad Creasy at RCB and Associates. Chad is a professional healthcare insurance agent who helps real estate investors and small business owners understand and choose their best healthcare options. And best of all, his services are covered by the insurance company and won't cost you a dime. If you are expecting a change in your healthcare insurance coverage for any reason, or losing employer coverage or transitioning into Medicare, then you owe it to yourself to contact Chad Creasy at rcbassociatesllc.com. So talk about taking those sales attributes and how they've helped you become successful as a real estate agent, especially in the commercial world, where I know you've sold over $150 million worth of real estate.
Yeah, it was kind of funny. I started my first flip, and that was, just a fun project. I grew up in construction, and then I got my license, and I was at a brokerage I didn't feel like had the best training, so I was looking for a new one, and I sat down with this gentleman named John Haar. He's in Pleasant Grove, Utah, just a amazing mentor. I'm very lucky to have worked for him. But I sat down with him and I said, you know what, John, I just need a script. I know that in sales you need to follow a script. You need to sound professional, act professional. You need to have a system that you follow. And, he and I joke about this. I'm guessing he about jumped out of his seat, because most realtors and salesmen don't want to follow a script. They want to wing it. They just want to do their own thing. And so he slapped down on his desk his 90-day production plan, which involved making a lot of cold calls. And he said, do you think you can cold call 2-3 hours a day? I said, well, geez, I've been knocking doors for like 10 hours a day. I think I can call a few hours a day. So, he was excited for me. I was excited. And in my first 6 months with him, I think I closed like 16 deals, which was a lot for a brand new agent. And so that's all I've done, is done the same thing, worked hard, made a lot of phone calls, really focused on providing a highly professional service to my clients, where I'm answering the phone, I'm communicating with them, I'm honest with them, and work with them in a way that they appreciate. I think realtors have the worst reputation. I mean, we're worse than lawyers in the different polls that they do, and the Gallup polls are worse than lawyers, worse than used car salesmen. I mean, there's literally not a profession more with a worse reputation than real estate. So I've tried to do the opposite and just provide the best customer service I possibly can.
I know you talked about why you're successful at the doors, or you were successful at the doors, but I'm wondering if there's like best practices, both for going to the doors and for being on the phone. And I'm talking about like actionable practices.
You have to be educated as a salesman and as a professional. So you have to know the market. So I learned from another mentor of mine who is very lucky. And again, my success isn't because I'm amazing. I wasn't naturally a good salesman. I've had some very, very good trainers. My huge thing is that I'm willing to work hard, and I'll work harder than almost anyone. I'm not naturally good. I'm not naturally, just an amazing salesman. I've really had to focus and train. So the first thing I did was hired a real estate coach who just broke down every type of conversation I would have with a client. If we're talking about needing a price reduction because we priced their house too high, or if we're talking about how to present an offer. So every aspect of my business, I've been coached on how to talk with the client, how it makes them feel better, how they want to be communicated with. And on the sales side, I learned from a gentleman that started a company building fourplexes, and I actually met him because I was bringing investors to his development, and I was amazed by how educated he was on every aspect of the market in that area, every other development that was going on. And, when you and I are looking at buying large multifamily developments, that's what you have to do as well. You have to know everything that's going on about the area, about that investment, competition, rents, the loan. And if you don't, your investors are going to feel like you don't, but also it may not be the best investment. So I learned early on, you have to know everything. You can't just slap an offer down on a table for a buyer and expect them to sign. They have to know what they're getting into, and they have to be educated, and you have to educate them and lead them along. And that's probably the best training I've had, is continually knowing that I have to continually educate myself on every different market, every different property I'm selling. And that's what a true professional does, is they spend the time to get educated and continually re-educate themselves, whether it's sales skills or on the product they're selling.
That's great advice. You really have to know your stuff. Going back to what you said about knowing what to say to clients when you have to, say, deliver bad news to them or get them to reduce their price. Can you give us an example of that type of conversation and how it's handled wrong and how you handle it?
Yeah. So, hey, Brian, how's it going? I've had your house for sale for 3 weeks and it's not selling, so we need to drop the price. That's every realtor's basic script. Hey, we've had it for sale. It's not selling. We need to drop it. If I called you with that, you're probably going to be a little bit frustrated at me, wonder if I'm doing my job. You don't really know why it's not selling. So instead of doing that every week, every Monday, I call my clients. I send them an email with all the statistics. I'm able to do reports of all the online marketing I've done, the paid Facebook marketing, the LoopNet, Zillow. All the marketing I've done. I send them a large report, and most of the time they don't read it or they glance at it. I'll give them all the feedback we've gotten from buyers or different investors. I'll show them comps of other properties that have sold while theirs was on the market. We'll do a new market analysis. And I would say most of the time they're not reading all that, but they get it every Monday from me. And then I call them and I go over it with them. And so in 3 weeks, in Utah, if your house or if your investment property is on the market 3 weeks, that's a little bit long. Everything's selling in 7 to 10 days. So I'll call you and say, hey, Brian, here's the statistics. We've done everything we usually do to sell a home or to sell an investment property or to sell an apartment building. You've seen the statistics every week now. And what do you think? Do you think we need to change something about the property, or do you feel like it's the price that we need to adjust? And usually every seller is going to say, oh, no, my property is amazing. It's perfect. It's in great condition. And so, okay, well, then it must be the price. And so that's a much different approach than just the typical realtor saying, hey, we need to drop the price.
Right. So you're leading your clients to come to that conclusion on their own by giving them the data that helps them come to that conclusion.
Yeah, if I do the marketing right and it is priced right, then within 2 to 3 weeks it'll be sold and we don't have to have that conversation. But at least they still received the updates every week, and at least they were educated on what was going on, and they weren't sitting there wondering if they were going to get an offer or what was going on. So it's just, professional communication helps, whether it's overpriced or whether it's going to sell. It just helps every situation.
I'd like to take a moment to tell you about Green Property Management. Not only do they manage everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area, they also manage my entire portfolio. So I can tell you from personal experience that their unique flat fee management style is worth a closer look. If you feel that your property isn't operating to its fullest potential, then Green Property Management can help you take a holistic approach that will save you money, eliminate your headaches, and increase your net income. And if you're a property manager interested in applying Green Property Management's model, give them a call at 1-866-95-GREEN or visit them on the web at greenpropertymgt.com. So let's apply that to real estate then. I'm curious how if these worlds merge together. You know, your world as a commercial real estate agent selling over $150 million in real estate, and then your portfolio that you've been building. Is there any merging there between the two?
Oh, absolutely. It's the same idea. I've built huge developments, $35 million developments, and the investors that put their money in those developments, they need the exact same type of communication. And usually there's the hardest part is when there's not an update, you still have to update people, you still have to communicate. And, I would walk the job site and send them videos of their unit and say, you know what, it's still just a foundation wall, but hey, look, there's a backhoe working on that other foundation wall, and oh, there's some framing lumber over there. They're probably going to start framing soon. And same thing with the apartments we buy. I drive by the properties. We take video. And so just a high level of communication. And again, I think most of my investors don't actually watch the whole video. They don't click through the PowerPoint presentation or the different news articles I send them, but they get them. They maybe read the headline. And I'll get a call back once in a while of someone that appreciates and reads the whole article. It's rare. But educating myself continually on any investment I've made, on new competition. I recently just sent out an email to my investors that said, hey, we need to sell this asset because we just had 900 doors approved next door, 2 different developments. I know who these builders are. They're going to build a pretty cheap product, and that's going to really hurt our rents. So before those come online, we need to sell. And, I had a few investors that say, oh, we get it. Awesome. Thanks for being educated and on top of things. And that's what you have to do. You can't just sit there and own a product and not continually communicate and not continually educate your investors.
Talking about continually informing and educating your investors, how often do you do that? Like, are you trying to communicate with them every day, every week, every month? What's your schedule?
Social media is fantastic because you can communicate without actually directing it to someone. So a lot of my investors and partners, it's Facebook Live videos, Instagram Live videos, because I'm on job sites or at different investments every day. But as far as an official email and videos, we do that twice a month. So I'm sending out different updates twice a month that specifically talk about their investment, what's going on, what we're doing, has a little write-up. And
are these when they're under development and they're being built, or is this even after they've stabilized?
Yeah, even after they're stabilized, there's always something you can look up about an area, whether it's just a news article that says, hey, here's what vacancy rates are in the Harriman, Utah area has the highest growing rent rates in the state. That's a fun little article I can send my investments, or the Facebook data center that's putting in $100 million worth of infrastructure into Eagle Mountain, Utah. That's going to really spur the growth out there. Those are just fun articles. It doesn't have to be a 2-page write-up, but at least it's something being sent out to them that helps keep them in the loop.
That's great. That's great. So let's talk a little bit more about your real estate, because it sounds like there's different tracks going on there as well, where you have your own portfolio that you're building, and then you've got some development projects, maybe some subdivisions, it sounds like, or townhomes that you've been selling along the way. Let's talk about your own portfolio first. Tell us a little bit more about that. I know you started with the house hack in the beginning with your wife, and then went from there. Where did you go?
Yeah, so one of my biggest beliefs is you have to make sacrifices, and you can't buy every new phone. You shouldn't buy every new car that comes out. You shouldn't need to spend a ton of money on clothing, and so we went from that first flip to a duplex, and it was a gross, disgusting duplex, not in a great area, but it was an amazing price. and we moved into it. So we house hacked that as well. I think our payment was $300 a month after our renters were paying their side, and that was great. We fixed it up, and I know I remember Lauren's parents were, I don't know if they were mad or just disgusted with where we were living, but they never really said anything. They kind of said they didn't like where we lived and it wasn't the best, but I'm imagining the conversation in their head was, what the heck? Where does he have our daughter living? Because it was gross. But I knew it was an amazing deal. And the next year we moved into a little bit nicer house that was also a house hack. But last year we were in another investment that we house hacked as well, and we were remodeling, and we bought our first couch and our first bed. And we've been married 10 years. We've been making great money for a lot of years, but we've always taken hand-me-downs, and I've never bought a new car until last year. And so we lived in these locations that were really not optimal. Gross, disgusting remodels. Our first one was a dog pee house. Our second one was just a rundown 1980s duplex. And so we've moved into nicer flips, but we've made some huge sacrifices. And, I make amazing money, which I never thought I'd make as much as I make today. I'm very blessed and have seen a lot of success. But in 10 years of marriage, we're just barely buying our first house that's actually for us.
I'm having a hard time understanding why that is. If you've been making good money along the way, why have you been living such a Spartan lifestyle?
So I'm not good at saving money, Brian. I love to buy the nice things. I'm very drawn to that, and I recognize that early on. And so I've been able to make myself poor by buying investment properties. And so we never had money to buy those nice things. And I knew that I didn't want to go buy a nice, big, beautiful house. I wanted to house hack and buy these investments. So we've saved our money. We've bought investments. We've never made less than a 20% return. And that's not counting tax write-offs. So we've also been blessed with some amazing tax write-offs. But we had a very specific goal in mind. I would love to be able to be at the position by the time I'm 40 years old to retire. And I'll most likely be there. If I wanted to retire, I won't, but I'll most likely be there. And so we just bought our first couch. We bought a new car last year. It's been fun buying these new items. But the whole time I've been selling real estate, I've been working with these buyers and these clients who absolutely max themselves out. They buy the biggest house they can possibly buy, and as soon as they move in, the next day they're at the store buying all the nicest couches and furniture. They're buying a new car because they have to have a new car for their new garage. And it just drives me nuts because, internally I'm thinking, man, I make three times as much as this person, yet they're driving a way nicer car and they have a way nicer house and way better furniture. And so credit to my wife, she grew up very, very wealthy. She's been able to do very well putting those things off for a long time because she also saw the vision of, hey, let's invest. Let's put our money into investments. And, in the next 5 or 6 years, I think we'll be done investing.
So it sounds like you've been kind of just doing continual house hacks along the way and putting all of your profits back into the next property and using it solely to invest in real estate.
Yeah, and not buying a nice house for ourselves and just doing house hacking allowed us to buy a triplex and a bunch of townhomes and put money into different projects. And we're a limited investor in 200 doors in Dallas. And so yeah, living that lifestyle also allowed us to have that extra income or that extra money to invest in these other properties and the extra home in Lehi, Utah. And all these properties are close to the Silicon Slopes where there's massive, massive growth going on. And so I've wanted to participate in that growth. And so that's what we've done. And now we're building a house that feels crazy to me. It's 4,500 square feet behind a golf course, and we'll have views of the mountains. So it's going to be fun. I think we're starting to see the fruits of our labors. We're getting some great returns. And, I bought a Hellcat last year. So I drive really fast now, and I smile every time I do. But we waited 10 years, and which isn't a long time, but for kids these days, I have a buddy that was just telling me how long you waited to buy a nice house, and they waited 2 years. I mean, they were married for 2 years and bought a new house on their second year. So for them, 2 years was brutal, So I was just laughing, like, man, you guys have no idea. But if you want to invest, you have to make the sacrifice.
Yeah, great. Explain to our listeners what you meant by you're a limited partner or limited investor in an apartment complex.
Yeah, so there's a syndicator who you and I both know. They were buying 208 doors in Dallas. So they put the syndication together. They were the general partners who were operating the deal, buying the deal, and then what they do is to bring in the down payment or to pay the down payment. They will accept money from 50 or 100 limited partners whose only participation in that apartment building is investing their capital. So as a limited partner, I don't operate it. I don't ever go see it. I don't do anything. I can go see it, but I'm limited to receiving a return on my money. And also my limitation is I have zero risk as far as I'm not on the loan. There's no recourse back to me for any legal issues that may come up. So syndication's a fantastic vehicle if you're busy, or if maybe you're not an expert in the market. If you find a really good syndicator like Brian, like yourself, who can give you a great return on your money, and they take on the risk, and they're going to get paid as well. I love when my friends and partners make money and I make money, and it's a great situation if you find a good syndicator. So the general partners do all the work, limited partners receive a return.
So that's a good transition into talking about you as a syndicator, because you do that as well.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about that, what you're up to as a syndicator.
Well, if we take almost 13 months ago, I left the company that I was building fourplexes with. We had a saying there's 4 of us salesmen that were helping develop the projects and also sell the projects, and then the builder would build them for us. We had a saying, and it was frustrating. The saying was, you can put up with a lot of crap for the type of money we're making. And it was sad. I hated working there, but I was making stupid, crazy money, and I was there for 4 years, and I didn't love it. And the reason I didn't love it is because the people there I didn't feel were as honest as they could. Well, they weren't honest. And they kept saying they were going to get better. They kept saying construction quality was going to get better. And while my investors were making amazing returns, it was an amazing deal for my investor clients. I couldn't stay there. It became a huge issue, and I left last July and immediately felt better as a person, as an investor. And so I contacted my clients, said, hey, I left. I'm going to be doing some other projects. I'm not sure what it is, but I think it's syndication, because that's a better deal for my investors. And so they've been on hold. We haven't actually purchased a property yet. I've raised money for a couple other deals. But I really just took a step back, and I wanted to know, okay, if we're at the top of the market, if there is a recession, what is the best investment for these group of investors that like me and trust me? Where can I put their money? And where can I put my own money, where my risk is lower and I have a solid return? Let's say the market drops by 10, 15, 20%. I don't know that it will, but I want to be ready for the next recession, and I want my investors. So I don't just want to make a bunch of commissions, and then this is my biggest fear, Brian, is I sell all these fourplexes. I do another $35 or $40 million fourplex development, sell 80 fourplexes to these investors, and the economy hits or goes down, and then they're looking at me like, hey, you sold us this product, and we're losing them to the bank, or they're not cash flowing, and we're not getting the return. And so I feel very obligated to my investors to not just take their money and get a commission, but to educate them on what's good for them, even if it's a lower commission. So when I syndicate, when I raise money or partner on another deal, I make way less money than if I was just selling these people more fourplexes or duplexes or large apartment buildings. So the commissions are way, way lower. They're about a third. But again, I want to do what's right for me and what's right for my investors. And I feel like long term, they'll be very, very appreciative that I did that, and they'll be better off and have a much lower risk, a portfolio with much lower risk. And so that's where we're at. We're making offers on multiple different properties right now, and my investors will be getting a 8 to 10% return, cash on cash, each year, and 17 to 20% IRR. So it's an amazing return with much lower risk, and that's where I want to take my career for the next 7 to 10 years, and that's where I want to take my investors.
I want to ask you, I mean, you talk about growing up poor. You're in a very different place right now when it comes to money and your net worth and everything. And I'm just wondering how you've been able to handle that, make that transition psychologically.
You know, I used to be scared to talk to anybody that owned a house, $300,000 or more, because they had money. And it's laughable now. People with money scared me, and 300,000.
Why did they scare you? What was it?
Because I had very small thinking parents, very small thinking upbringing. People with money were evil, or they did something dishonest to get the money. I think that's a lot of poor people's excuse not to grow and to push hard to make money. Not all of them, but it certainly was my thinking is. You got to be dishonest or something to make so much money. And my first broker, that's how she thought as well. So I've been able to surround myself with fantastic, I mentioned John Haar at Mountain Land Realty, and now George Morris, who they're some of the most honest, giving people that I've ever met. And I'm very, very lucky to have been mentored by them. And then there's Mike Ferry, my real estate coach. Or it's his coaching company. And so spending time with these big thinkers who love helping others, who are extremely honest and just fantastic individuals, it's been a great progression. So I quickly learned that I loved selling $300,000 houses because the commission was 2 or 3 times larger. And then I decided I loved selling $500,000 houses. And so I kept pushing my price range up, and I realized the people with money were actually really cool. They actually liked helping others. They were easier to deal with, and I enjoyed working with them. And now I've got clients worth $300 million, and I have clients worth $10 million, $50 million, $100 million, and I get along great with those people, and I feel very confident that I have a lot to offer. But it's because I have spent thousands, over 100,000 on coaching, been to the seminars and done the trainings, and I feel like I have a lot of value to add as well. But yeah, it's definitely been a mindset shift of, rich people. Not all rich people are evil. Most of them actually are just highly productive, good people, and most people want to help. And George Morris, he's the #1 Century 21 broker in the world, and he's done that in 9 years, and it's because he adds massive, and that's my owner, my broker, he adds massive value to other people. That's his whole day, is adding value to others, helping his real estate agents make more money, and helping his real estate agents provide higher level of service to their clients. And that's what I've noticed is, there's people that make money. There's the Wolf of Wall Street example where he was out to screw everyone else all the time, and well, it didn't turn out very well for him because he went to prison. And so I think there's people that do that make a lot of money, and you have to be careful that you have friends and coaches that keep your head from getting too big. But most of the people I spend time with just sincerely want to help others, and they provide a high level of service, and it's all about who you hang out with. Rod Khleif's a great example of that. He adds massive value. You and I have had great conversations where you've added massive value to me, and it's been great listening to you and what you're doing. And I think that's what you do for your clients as well, as or your investors, you add massive value. And I think that's the trick, is just hanging out with the people that it's not about the money, although that's important. It's more about adding value to others and and performing at a high level.
Yeah, absolutely. Adding massive value to other people who you can help. That's a great thing to strive for. You're going to be adding massive value through a podcast that you've got coming up. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, thanks. So, to help my investors, my clients transition from buying duplexes and fourplexes and townhomes and 20-unit buildings, I've created this podcast that'll be launching at the end of August, early September 2019. And believe me, I'm not I think you have a great radio type voice. I never thought I would or have a podcast or anything. So it's been a struggle, but I wanted to do it to educate my clients on what's important about basically reducing the risk in your portfolio, mitigating the risk in buying real estate and investing the right way. So it's called recession-proof real estate investing. And the goal is just to educate my clients, friends, family, anybody who listens on why syndications are a better deal. With the right syndicator, you can have way better returns and way lower risk, and why multifamily and storage units and the things that you're doing are way lower risk and way higher returns, and why buying that duplex at a 5 cap, even though it's in a good location, it's not a great idea, especially at the top of the market. So that's the goal, and we've got some great people that have been on the show already. I'm excited to have you on and hear about you buying notes and your note fund, and you're doing some really cool stuff, and I believe your investors have been seeing some great returns as well.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. If anyone wanted to get a hold of you, how would they do so, Sam?
Text is by far the best. You can call me, but I'm usually in appointments all day. So I'll send you my phone number here in the message. It's 801-995-2220. So just shoot me a text, or you can email me at samnewellrealestate@gmail.com. And we've got some cool projects coming up. But I'd love to just talk real estate with people and add value, and feel free to shoot me a text or give me a call.
Well, I've really enjoyed talking with you, Sam. I've enjoyed getting to know you as well through the multifamily mastermind group that we're a part of. Really appreciate you sharing your story with us. The fact and circumstances under which you grew up and how you've been able to just use real estate on so many different levels to get to where you are now is very impressive and inspiring. So thank you for sharing your story with us today.
Well, thank you, Brian. It's been great getting to know you as well, and I'm excited to talk further.
I want to thank everybody for listening to this episode. I'm your host, Brian Hamrick from Hamrick Investment Group, and you can find out more about me by going to higinvestor.com. That's higinvestor.com. And you can also ask questions and join us on Facebook by going to RPOA, Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast. This episode was sponsored by Green Property Management, managing everything from single-family homes to apartment complexes in the West Michigan area. Find out more at greenpropertymgt.com. And RCB and Associates, helping real estate investors and small business owners navigate the complex world of health insurance and Medicare benefits at rcbassociatesllc.com.
You've been listening to the Rental Property Owner and Real Estate Investor Podcast, brought to you by the Rental Property Owner Association. You can find out more at rpoaonline.org. If you enjoyed this podcast, please go to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and review.